We're going to transition. We're speaking about something that Jesus taught. And today's teaching is going to, I hope, be very practical, and it's going to hit some of us right where we need God to speak to us. Jesus spoke something in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6 that was so central and so important that we're going to go deeper into it. If you remember me talking last week about the chiasma, if you weren't here last week, you don't have to know this. The chiasma is a literary structure where everything at the first of the story, at the first of the sermon, and the end of the sermon all relate, and it builds on itself to one central point. And Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is so masterfully written that it all goes to one central point. And so right near the summit, Jesus begins speaking about something over and over that's obviously of great importance to him. And if something's of great importance to our creator, our designer, our sustainer, we can assume it's important for us. And this is something central. I don't want us to take it lightly, but here's the deal. The topic I'm about to tell you is something we do take lightly. It's something we make jokes out of. It's something we go, oh, I just got it from my mom or my dad. It's just some part of my family. We're going to talk today about worry. Now, wherever you are, you're like, oh, well, I'm already convicted. He said the word, and I'm already worried about it. I'm worried about the sermon. Or you're not worried at all. And I know this, that there's a spectrum of emotions, and everybody's on a spectrum of worry. And some of you are known as a worrier. You wear the title, you know, all these things, and you know worry is a part of your life in a funny way, but people might not know how much it actually costs you. Others of us on the other side of the spectrum, worry is not something you deal with based on the way your temperament and personality and that God created you. Worry's not something I deal with until it's like one of the things that really gets you. But maybe you're married, or maybe you know somebody who is a worrier. And so today's sermon that Jesus speaks about is for all of us. And to start this, I'm going to go back to Genesis, because in Genesis, we know that God created us. God created humanity. He designed humanity a certain way and how to operate in perfection. Did you know in perfection, there's no worry? That we were created to have perfect peace and joy, to live fully in the present, to have patience. But we know that in creation, we chose selfishness. We chose our own way. We chose to seek our own kingdom. You know, Jesus says, seek first the kingdom. We sought our kingdom, and in that there was sin, and suffering entered the earth. And when sin and suffering entered the earth, worry became something that began to prey upon us. It's something that I believe has caused more human suffering than most anything else. Not on a large scale like war, but on a personal, daily, minute-by-minute scale for you and I. Worry is something that can rob you of joy at Disneyland. It can rob you of peace on a beach. It can rob you of all joy and present moments when you're with your family at a great family moment, and suddenly it is ripped and you find yourself robbed of that moment. Worry is very personal. I want us to stop taking worry lightly. We just excuse it. We cannot excuse it. By the end of the sermon, I'm praying that you have declared war on worry, because it has declared war on you. And for some of you, how much has worry actually cost you? In sleep, in moments with family, in moments of just peace. How much has worry actually cost you? And actually, worry is something that impacts us more than we know. I went on a kind of a deep dive of the physical, emotional, spiritual effects of worry. Worry impacts the body at a great level. Your brain and body don't know the difference between reality and fantasy. And so when you're having a worry fantasy about something terrible happening, your body responds as if it's real. That's why when you worry, you don't feel better. Oh, I'm glad I got that out of my system. No. When you worry, your heart's beating, your anxiety's up, because it increases stress hormones, cortisol levels go up. It's proven, which means that a lot of the fatigue that you face, that you think is just you're so busy or your work, is actually your worry and your cortisol. It leads to fatigue, weight gain, and impaired immune response. 3 of my favorite things, right? It leads to hormone imbalances as it disrupts adrenaline, insulin, and metabolic issues. It leads to a weakened cardiovascular health because it raises blood pressure and heart rate. It increases your risk of heart attack and stroke. What you think about. It suppresses your immune function, your ability to fight infection and sickness. If you've noticed, sometimes in your most stressful seasons, you get the most sick. Why does it always happen around this time of year? It could be that you're worried. Psychological and emotional, the brain, neuroplasticity, and this is something that I love to research. Worry rewires your brain, reinforcing negative thought patterns and emotional deregulation. Worry remaps your brain and makes it easier to continue to worry. Worry leads to cognitive decline. It can impair our memory, focus, and decision-making abilities by overloading our prefrontal cortex. It leads to sleep disturbances. You can't go to sleep, or you ever wake up, and the first thing you're like, oh, I could just go back to sleep, and then you think about the thing. Oh no, it's 3. I need 3 more hours of sleep. Not on my watch, says your worry. I got this, I'll take it from here. And the one thing you needed, sleep and rest, is now robbed from you. Increased rumination. Worry traps the mind in a loop of repetitive negative thoughts, which makes it harder to actually become a solution finder in your life. Prolonged stress keeps your body in a fight or flight state, leading to adrenal fatigue. Dale Carnegie said, our fatigue is often caused not by our work, but by our worry, and science is backing that up. It leads to chronic inflammation. I can just keep going through. Strained relationships. It manifests in irritability, overdependence on people, emotional withdrawal, and it makes relationships harder to engage at a present moment because one of the people is in a future reality of worry. It leads to reduced empathy and reduced patience because of the stress. It can lead to social withdrawal and avoidance behaviors, isolating yourself. It can erode your faith, lead to feelings of hopelessness. It can lead to a loss of presence because you're living in a hypothetical future. It leads to diminished resilience to face future challenges that will come up. Worry makes you more susceptible to all kinds of diseases, including depressions and all kinds of things. You see, worry profoundly affects us at every single level: mind, body, and soul, and relationships. Recognizing these can inspire a shift toward faith. And my hope for you is by the end of this, some of us who are okay being worriers, or we say we are, will shift to not being okay with it. I'm not going to live like this. I have behaved myself into this kind of lifestyle, and God has shown me a way to behave myself out of it and begin to live a lifestyle that doesn't run on worry. So, here's some quotes about worry that I thought were so good. It says, worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only saps today of its joy. If you want to test your memory, like if you think, well, I'm having some memory, test your memory. Try recalling what you were worrying about 1 year ago today. You see, oftentimes the things that were so important at some point that kept us up, now it's just something else. Winston Churchill said this: when I look back on all the worries, I remember the story of an old man who said on his deathbed that he had a lot of trouble in life, and most of which had never happened. He had spent most of his trouble in life just worrying. And then I love this last one about the power of worry. Someone, as a joke, sarcastically said, worrying actually works, because 99% of the things I worry about never happen. If a friend came up to you and the friend said, I gotta admit something to you. I hurt myself. I hurt myself on purpose. Every morning when I wake up, I start hurting myself. And I hurt myself all throughout the day. And how much I hurt myself affects my relationships. It affects my job. It affects my personal happiness. I hurt myself all throughout the day. And then at night, I stay up and hurt myself until I finally fall asleep exhausted. You, out of your concern, you would say, I am so sorry. My friend, I love you. Can I help you? Let's find some help. You would want to get them some help if that was true. But oftentimes, when it comes to worry, we're hurting ourselves when we wake up. We hurt ourselves all through the day. And the last thing we do before we fall asleep is just hurt ourselves. It torments us. You see, worry, we have to take it out of just the meaningless part of life and realize it's something we have chosen to engage in, and therefore you can choose not to engage in. And it's something that is literally hurting you. Legitimately, it's harming your life and your relationships. There's a field by my house that's empty, and it hasn't sold or whatever. Anyway, there's a field out there, and I watched when we first moved in, there was kind of one big thistle bush. And that season came and went. And the next season, there was a little pocket of thistle bushes. And that came and went. By the fourth year, it was amazing. This field was full of thistles. Little seeds had begun taking over this entire field. And now you can't even go in that field without getting wounded, hurt, drawing blood. It's not fun to go into that field. And it all came from small seeds that continued to be planted and grew and grew and grew until someone came along and did something very drastic and took them all out. Jesus says, he talks about 4 soils. He said there's a soil that's good soil, that's our heart. Each of our hearts has a soil that his word falls into. As I speak this today, God's word is gonna fall into the soil of your heart, depending on how soft it is to sink down or not. But he talks about one of the soils that has weeds and thorns and thistles in it. And he says this in Luke 8:14. The seed, that's his word, his teaching, fell among the thorns. It represents those people who hear the message of Jesus, but all too quickly, the message is choked out by the worries, riches, and pleasures of this life. And so they never mature. We read a parable, but I want us to put that mirror up in front of us. For some of us, we would have to admit, my faith is kind of the same as it was 10 years ago. My trust in Jesus there hasn't been a lot of growth, a lot of maturity in my faith and my trust. I'm not seeing what I want to see in my spiritual life. It could be that the worries and the pleasures of this life are choking out the faith. Did you know that worry can actually choke out the faith God desires you to have? He says it. Jesus says this. God calls you to a life of faith, to follow him in purpose and calling, and your worry can choke that out. We have to stop minimizing it and marginalizing it. Jesus says it's the very thing that could be stopping you from having the life of faith that he's called you to. Worry can keep you from living the life that God designed for you to live. He says here that the word goes in our heart and that our faith is choked out by pleasure. I'm just going to say this is secret pet sins. So I'm going to pull aside in Jesus' teaching and give you 2 questions. Your faith life, your life of faith, if it's not maturing, if it's not growing the way you want it to, or the way God wants it to, are there secret pet sins in your life that are choking your faith? Are there areas of your life that aren't open to others where there is something that is choking out the faith that God's called you to? I would say that's a place to open up and bring light and tell someone and get help. Now that's a hard thing to do. Also, worry. What worry is choking out the life God calls you to? This is no small matter. Are you a worrier? Is anxiety and fear and worry a part of your life? Do you know, are you married to somebody who it is? Is it a part of your life in a certain area? Is it consuming for you? Is worry actually stopping the growth and maturity that God's calling you to? And if it is, what are we going to do about it? The Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says over and over, I'm going to go through these verses. In Matthew 6, he repeatedly stays on theme. Watch this. He says, Matthew 6:21, I tell you not to worry about everyday life. I tell you not to worry about everyday life. Matthew 6:27, can all your worries add a single moment to your life? Can your worry add a single second moment to your life? Luke, he talks about this. He was interviewing, I believe, Matthew and others. And so he talks about this. He says the same thing. Can your worries add a single moment to your life? And he has this next one that Jesus said, and if worry can accomplish the little thing, what's the use of worrying over a big thing? You're like, I only worry about the big things. If it can't add a single moment of your life for a little thing, if worry can't add the smallest thing to your life, what's the use of worrying over the big things? Worry adds absolutely nothing. He continues, Matthew 6:28, why worry about your clothing? I know for some of us it's harder than others. My son doesn't worry at all about what he wears. Zero worry. But this is talking about something different. Not like, what am I gonna wear? But if I'm gonna have something to wear. We'll touch on that in a second. Matthew 6:31. Don't worry about these things, Jesus says. What will I eat? What will we drink? What will we wear? And Matthew 6:34. Don't worry about tomorrow. And in the future is where worry lives. We don't really worry about the past unless we're using the past to worry about how people are gonna perceive us or recognize us. Worry lives in the future. I wanted to introduce you to something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's not something normally used in a sermon, but I thought it was, as I researched this, I thought this was interesting. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These are the things that we need in order, our lives need in order to thrive and survive. The lowest of the hierarchy of needs that every human needs is survival. What do we need for survival? You need air, oxygen. You need water, food, clothing, shelter. You have to have those. And it's a hierarchy because, let me ask you this. Let's say that you have dreams for a big promotion. And at that meeting, you start choking on a piece of steak. All dreams of promotion cease to exist. Because according to Maslow and your body, there is one thing you need, and it is air. If you don't have water, that's all you're consumed with. You don't have food to eat, that's what you're thinking of. The next one up is safety. And this level has to do with personal safety. If you're not safe somewhere, it's consuming, isn't it? If you're in a foxhole, it's overwhelming. This is also your health, if you have a diagnosis, or this is also your personal freedom and a stable resource that allows you safety. The next one up is belonging. And belonging has to do with friends and family and community and love. And after you have the air and the food and the water you need and you feel safe, then what we start to look for is a community of people to be a part of. A community of people where we are known and they know us. The next one up is esteem. You guys didn't think you're gonna get a good psychology lesson, did you? Esteem, confidence, accomplishment, competence, and respect. These are the things that he says we look for as these begin to solve themselves. We begin to have this hierarchy of needs. I need to have some respect, to do something worthwhile. And the last one I'm gonna call purpose. He calls it self-actualization. But purpose here, purpose is these are things like using your gifts to have eternal change. This is when you're using what God has given you to make an impact greater than yourself. This is having a purpose-filled life, fulfilling your calling, fulfilling God's destiny for you. You're not really thinking about God's destiny if you don't have shelter and clothing, or if you're not safe, or if you're just completely lonely. So we see how as these needs resolve, we are focused on higher needs. Jesus talks about in Matthew 6:25, he talks about, what did he say? Don't worry about what you eat or drink or what you wear. Where is Jesus relating to this crowd as he preaches this sermon? At what level? These are huge spiritual issues Jesus is talking about, right? I mean, it's such a huge spiritual issue. What is he preaching to? What level is he preaching to for these people in this context in history? Right here. Matthew 6:25, Jesus speaks right here. Don't worry about these things. And I want to tell you, you might be worried about what you eat. But let's be honest. I'm lactose intolerant. I can't have gluten. I don't want carbs. I'm watching this. That's not the same thing Jesus is talking about. When he says don't be concerned about what you eat or don't worry about what you're eating, it's not what you're gonna eat, it's if. When he says don't worry about what you're gonna wear, it's not like, well, I need something that really highlights whatever. It's, do I have something to wear that keeps me warm? Don't worry about what we drink, what flavor, or how good the brew is. Do I have clean water? And so he's talking about issues down here and telling that context. Orchard, can we be honest? We don't really, how much of your prayers are down here? If we're really honest, even those of us who financially are in difficult places wondering what we're gonna eat, we can always go to City Market and get the 25-cent 5-pack of ramen. So he's still talking about things above that most often. Now, I want to be very honest. There are people in our region, in our town, and perhaps in our family who are struggling with the if of eating and clothing and water. And if that is you, I want you to come talk to me. Okay? I'm not talking about the what I'm going to eat. I'm talking about if. If that's you, come talk to me. But for the rest of us, we can admit, we're not worried about if we have clothing. We're worried about what clothing we're going to wear to church and how it's going to look. The next one Jesus talks about in Matthew 6:34, he says, don't worry about tomorrow. Now, this mostly hits right here. When you're concerned about tomorrow in the future, it's usually what's going to happen to me in that meeting. What's going to happen to me there? What's going to happen to my freedom? It has to do with autonomy and freedom and the things that we talked about with that level. But also, worrying about tomorrow can sneak up into here, especially like worrying about loneliness. Am I going to find someone? Do I have what it takes? Has God called me to anything? Am I wasting my life? There are worries that kind of creep up into those things. And so where do our worries come in? I want to talk to you about oftentimes the way that our worry comes in. Because if Jesus was speaking to us here today, he probably wouldn't say, don't worry about what you're going to drink. Because you'd be like, okay, I am cruising through this sermon. I am hitting Jesus at every level. Not worried about what I'm wearing, what I'm drinking, what I'm eating. Got it. So what would he say? The Bible talks in 2 Corinthians 10:45 about how we are attacked. And the attack that happens upon us is in the original language is called a speculation. This is the worry that we often face. It's a speculation. A speculation is defined as the forming of a belief without evidence. The forming of a belief without evidence. And 2 Corinthians 10:4 and 5 talks about these things that we fight and we battle. And so we have speculations. These things that come into our life and like dynamite explode and light this thing up. Think about the speculations you face. It's a belief, it's a thought, it's a wondering, it's a fantasy without evidence. It's a what if. This is the enemy's attack on your life. We've talked about this. You're driving down the road. Things are great. What if it's cancer? What? Have you ever had that? Especially new parents. Now you have somebody else to worry about who's little and they get a headache and you're like, oh no, my 2-year-old, it's gonna be something bad. And the amount of speculations I fight over these things. How about this? Is this the way my life will always be? What if I'm fired? What if they die? We have health speculations. What if my loved ones die? Or our own health. What if I have it? What if something's gonna happen? What if I die? What if I never find someone? What if I'm alone forever? What if it never gets better? What if I can never get free of this? What if they're tailor-made for you? The what if speculation that hooks you and lights this up is not the one that hooks me. But have you ever been at a family gathering, a great moment, and a what if speculation hits you and you are ripped out of the present and into reality that doesn't exist? What if? You ever had a diagnosis or been in the limbo of a diagnosis? And you just lay there thinking of all the many things that could mean. What if it means this? What if it's this? What if it's this? Where do those what ifs all exist? In the fantasy, in the imagination of the future. And I want to say this. I thought this, as I was thinking this through, worry is temporary insanity. It truly is. Temporary insanity is a legal term used to describe a brief episode where someone is not in control of their emotions and loses understanding of reality through emotional distress. That's worry. Worry is where we disconnect from the reality we're in and live in a make-believe world of worst-case scenarios, pains, and sufferings. It is temporary emotional, spiritual insanity. Worry is temporary insanity where we step out of the reality of God's love and control and live in an imagination where pain is the God and is upon us. Worry is also temporary atheism. Those of you who, oh man, I'm a person of faith, but I'm also a worrier. Worry is temporary atheism. Living in an imagined fantasy where God is not good. God is not powerful enough. And the worst case scenario determines the destiny and direction of your life. Worry is temporary atheism where fear overrides faith and God is not in control. Worry is meditating on a future without God that doesn't exist. So when it comes to these things, when it comes to worry, we are supposed to fight it. We're supposed to fight speculations, and he just tells us flat out, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about these things. Well, what's the cure? The cure is this. The cure is three things: prayer, battle, and light. Prayer, battle, and light. Prayer isn't all we do, but prayer is the first thing we do. Prayer, it says this, it says, don't worry about anything. It's Paul writing. Don't worry about anything. Anything. Don't worry about what? Anything. Don't worry about anything. But instead, pray about everything. Pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for what he's done. Gratitude is part of this. Then you will experience, not some theoretical thing. Then you will experience, live in, have, feel. You'll experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we understand. It exceeds anything we could understand. His peace will guard your heart and minds as you live in Jesus. Where do you live in Jesus? In the present moment. So worry is an imagination of a future moment without God. He says live in the present moment with Jesus, and his peace will do what? It will guard your heart and guard your mind. I want God guarding my heart and mind from worry, not just me trying to fight off these terrible thoughts about all the diagnosis and the depression and all these things. I want God, I have to be in the moment. His peace will guard your heart and mind as you live in Jesus, not in an imaginary future of temporary atheism and insanity. I did a lot of research on mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the things that science is telling us with proof leads to combat worry. Mindfulness is prayer. It's being present in the moment and bringing God into it. And I want to say this: worry prays and faith prays. Worry preys upon you where faith prays from within you. Stay in the moment and pray in faith, because if you get out of that moment, worry is going to eat you alive. Cortisol, stress, relationships, everything is going to be affected. Worry is a conversation with my fear, bringing my problems to my fear for answers. Worry is a conversation with my fear, bringing my problems to my fear for answers, whereas prayer is a conversation with God, bringing my problems to his strength. Worry and prayer are almost the same thing. It's just who you're going to. When you worry, you're praying to your problem and imagining an outcome. Stay in the presence of Jesus and imagine as you pray, Father, would you help me in this place? Remember, don't worry about anything, but pray about everything. Stay right here in Jesus in the moment. Don't go ahead. Worry leaves you weaker. Prayer leads you stronger. Worry will always take you farther than you wanted and leave you weaker than you thought. It will always weaken you. It will always affect you. It will never help you. Worry never helps you. But prayer will lead you to strength. So we say, oh, the answer is prayer? Way to go, preacher. You worked hard on this one. I'm going to tell you something. Science is backing up the mindfulness. And mindfulness is being in the present and bringing God in there into the present moment where he can guard my mind and my heart in Jesus. I love it when science catches up to Jesus. It's a bigger deal than you think that you worry. So here's the deal. When you start to worry, you've behaved yourself into a lifestyle of just running with the thought. What if it's cancer? What if they leave me? What if this? What if what? What if? Here's the thing. Your new battle is to stop it as soon as you recognize it. And it'll be 5 minutes at first. You'll be driving down and it'll be 82. You'll be 5 minutes in. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to worry. Back to the present. But as you begin to fight those battles, it'll first spark. What if What if the diagnosis is this? Nope, I'm not gonna go there. When you worry, snap back to reality. Rebuke speculation, and pray in the moment, pray in the present. Refuse to be tempted to leave and go into the imaginary future of fantasy, of temporary insanity. Next is battle. If you're serious about this, write down your worry, and then write down the lies of it, and then write down the Bible's truth of it. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline. You may have come because say, hey, I'm a worrier, but God didn't give you that spirit. You behaved your way into that. It's time to start battling your way out of it. Write down your worry, write down the lies it means, and write the truth of it. Pray, battle, and finally light. Bring it to the light. My wife, she's a counselor by heart and by schooling, and I married a counselor, and I take advantage of it. I mean, it's therapy. I'm like, listen, here's what I'm worried about. I've learned that if I bring my worries out to light, they look silly sometimes. Man, worries inside the secrecy of my heart just eat me like cancer. But I go, Amy, here's what I've been worried about lately. Just speaking it out in light changes that. And having a community of people who are there to feed you truth and reflect God's faith upon you and pray with you can change everything. Find a community, a trusted loved one, someone, a counselor, a therapist. Find somebody to speak your worry to in the light to get truth about it. I believe in therapy. I believe in counseling. I believe in the truth of the Bible, and I love when they intersect. Worry dies in the light. Secret sin that we talked about in the soil dies in the light. So bring it to the light. And finally, Jesus says the answer of all this is, I'm out of time. He said, band, come on out. Jesus says the answer to all this is to seek God above all things. Seek God in his kingdom. And so Maslow's top levels, he says to seek first, right? Seek first is what he says. It's almost above Maslow, like above him. You are seeking first God and his ways. And as you seek him and he gives you you're seeking his kingdom, he says, seek first the kingdom, seek first my kingdom and my ways, and all this will be added to you. You want identity and confidence? Seek first the kingdom. You want to know you belong? Seek first the kingdom. You want to know you have purpose? Seek first the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added on you. Oh, and about this, let's see. Purpose. This is love God right here. Love God. Belonging. Love people. And what does the rest of the verse say? Love God, and it says love people as yourself. The Word of God has led us into these places. He's the designer, he's the creator of your heart, of your mind. He knows what we face, he knows what we fight, and he's calling you into a life of seeking him first, living according to his mission, and all these things will be added onto you. And listen, you don't have to be a victim of speculation. I don't have time. I'm out of time. We're gonna sing a song. I'm sorry. Let's sing a song and end. Oh. Are you back there? Okay. Whew. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. 10 seconds? Okay. No, I'm kidding. This is real stuff, and this is ruining some of our lives. I want you to take this, and I want you to pray about it with God. Talk to your growth group, your small group, your mentor, somebody. Orchard, you don't have to be a victim of speculation and worry. We have a God who calls us to a life of faith over those things. Let's worship.